Captain Simeon observes the Hadrian's Folly as it jumps into E-Drive. Beside him, his executive officer says, "Sir, are we just letting them go?" The captain is silent for a moment as he considers the question, before turning to the executive officer and saying, "Set course for Rampart. Alert me when we arrive." He turns and walks toward the lift to his ready room, hearing the officer repeat his orders to the crew. Inside the ready room, Captain Simeon sits at his desk and activates the display. A message, already opened, fills the screen, and Simeon stares at it, considering its contents once again. It says, "If in your travels through Veritas Sector, you encounter a herald named Lucius Tarquin, you are to render him aid and are not to interfere with the completion of his tasks. If you do interfere in any way, I will learn of it and alert your superiors to the sympathies you hold toward Noshana Aerith." The message bears no signature or point of origin. Captain Simeon reads the last line one more time, and reaches for the bottle of amber liquor on the corner of his desk, pouring a few fingers into a crystal glass. With a half-hearted salute to the display, the captain downs it in a single gulp, and turns to stare out the viewport window into the void. Welcome back for episode 9 of Errant Adventures. As always, I'm your game master and solo player, Steve Morrison. This week, Lucius makes the jump to Rampart, where he must put all his skills to work in order to complete his vow. Find out if he can handle the pressure in episode 9, Wrecking Crew. As the Hadrian's Folly jumps into E-Drive, escaping the clutches of the Ironhawk dreadnought Winnower, Lucius, I think, locks down the controls and gets up and hurries down into the hold to find the escape pod that he scooped up in the quick escape out of the system. As he's coming into the hold, I think the escape pod is opening up, and Adelie and the soldiers from Lodestar emerge. I think Adelie runs across the hold, throws her arms around Lucius, and says, "Lucius, you're okay. How did you get away?" And Lucius smiles a little bit and says, "Funny thing, the captain of the Winnower, not such a bad guy. Seemed to be cognizant of the fact that as a son of one of the founder clans, he needed to tread carefully where I was concerned. But I don't know that largesse is going to get us much further. So I think I've calculated the final jump to Rampart. So as soon as we drop out of the quick jump that I put us into, I think we're going to try for it." And Adelie says, "Good. I think the faster we get along on our mission, the better for all of us." And they return back to the bridge after, I think, checking on Lieutenant Mila and the soldiers from Lodestar, making sure that they're all right and that they're settled. And Lucius and Adelie then return back to the cockpit to talk and prepare for the next jump. So I'm sitting at 6 out of 10 progress on my expedition to return to Rampart. And I think based on what just happened with the Winnower and all of these circumstances, I think it makes sense to try and go ahead and complete this expedition right now. So, that being said, our first move of this episode is going to be an attempt to reach our destination. So I've got 6, like I mentioned, in my progress, and I'm going to roll the challenge dice, and we're going to see what happens. Okay, so I've got, again, a 6 on my progress. I've got a 2 and a 6 on the challenge dice for this roll. So that's a weak hit. So on a weak hit, we reach our destination, but we face an unforeseen complication at the end of the expedition. we're going to make the legacy reward 1 rank lower and envision what you find. So the legacy reward would have been 2 ticks because it was a dangerous journey, but because we're making it 1 rank lower, it's going to be just 1 tick. I've got 1 out of 4 ticks in my discoveries track for the next XP, so that's okay, that's good. And we arrive at Rampart successfully, but there's an unforeseen complication. And I think we already know what this unforeseen complication is because a couple episodes ago, we had a momentary flash of what was going on back at Rampart. And I think now Lucius and Adelie are going to get clued in on that complication right now. So as the Hadrian's Folly drops out of E-Drive around the desert world that holds Rampart, I think immediately the scanners pick up a ship in orbit, and we now see the Hadrian's Folly approaching the planet, and then we see this cruiser that we came across before hovering over Rampart and bombarding the planet, specifically the location of Aunt Aurelia's warehouse. So as we see this, Lucius kind of swears a little bit under his breath and says, it just doesn't get any better, does it? All right, so it looks like, according to the scans, the shield is holding down there, but I don't know how long it will hold. I don't know how long they've been here or how long they're going to keep going. What are we going to do? And Adelie says, well, Lucius, we either have to get the Ironhawks away or we need to contact your aunt and get her out of there. And Lucius is like, yeah, okay. So let me see if I can punch a message through to Aunt Aurelia. And he is going to try and send a tight beam message through to the shipbuilder's warehouse. And I think in order to do that, he is going to be facing a little bit of danger here because I don't think the Ironhawks have picked up on the Hadrian's Folly's presence quite yet. But depending on the result of his face danger roll, that may change. So I think it's going to be expertise because he's trying to send a communication. Oh, but it could be with stealth or trickery because he's trying to encode it. I think I'm going to stick with wits. He's using his expertise to kind of bounce the signal around through whatever interference is being caused by this bombardment to try and reach Aunt Aurelia. So I got a wits of +3, and we're going to go ahead and see what happens. All right, so I have a 9 on the action die. I've got a 3 and a 4 on the challenge dice. So we're starting off with a strong hit. That's great. So I think he is able to punch through the interference that is surrounding Aunt Aurelia's warehouse and get a message through to her. And I think because of that, I'm going to go ahead and mark 2 progress on this vow. So that takes me to 4 out of 10 progress on return Nashana Aerith's message to Aurelia Tarquin. So I think the message goes through and Aunt Aurelia comes on the view screen and is like, Lucius, is that you? Oh, good, you're back. I don't know if you've noticed, but it appears that the Ironhawks are bombarding me, so that's not great. But don't worry, my shield is holding. And Lucius says, Aunt Aurelia, I have a message for you. And she waves her hands and says, no, don't broadcast it over open air. And Lucius says, I think my encryption is strong enough. And she waves her hands again and says, no, I don't want to hear it over the air. It's too risky. We need to take out that cruiser. And Lucius sort of pauses for a moment and says, how exactly do you want me to do that? How exactly does she want him to do that? I think, based on what we know about Aunt Aurelia and her workshop, and the fact that it is using ascendancy tech to create this shield, I think it stands to reason that there is ascendancy tech elsewhere on Rampart. So I think I'm going to ask the Oracle if there is an ascendancy ruin relatively nearby to Rampart that might house some sort of weapon or technology that Lucius could use to either destroy or disarm or drive off the Ironhawk cruiser. So I think it's very likely. So I think it's almost certain that this is the case. So it's going to be 11 or greater is a yes. I'm going to roll my percentile dice and we're going to see. So I rolled a 10. I rolled a 10 on a D100. I needed an 11 or greater for a yes that there is an ascendancy ruin nearby. So there's not. There's no ascendancy ruins nearby. There's no technology. However, and I think this, if I'm remembering correctly, this desert world is orbiting an artificial star that was constructed by the ascendancy. So I think the no here is not that there isn't ascendancy tech that can be useful or helpful. I think the no is that it's not nearby. It's actually in orbit around this artificial star. And I think that's probably where Aunt Aurelia left some of this stuff. And maybe she's using it in her building of ships. So she left it in orbit of this artificial star to keep it safe from scavengers and other people. Yeah, so I think she says to Lucius, I'm sending you coordinates. There's an old ascendancy wreck out there. If you can get to it, there is it's kind of like a particle cannon on this ship. If you can disengage it and attach it to the Hadrian's Folly, it should give you enough firepower to at least make the Ironhawks think twice about continuing their bombardment. And Lucius pauses for a moment and processes that, and then is like, okay, I guess I can do that. It's been a while since I've done some weapon upgrades to a starship, but I remember enough, I think. Okay, I've got the coordinates. I will go, and I will be back shortly. And Aurelia's like, good. I'm glad you're back, Lucius. I was worried that you weren't going to make it. And then there's a brief pause, and I think then Aurelia looks into the camera and says, how was Lodestar? And Lucius, I think, has a better understanding of his aunt based on the interaction with Nashana Aerith. And he says, Clan Leader Aerith is doing well, and I've got a lot to tell you. We have a lot to talk about, but be careful. I'll be back as soon as I can. And Lucius is going to turn the Hadrian's Folly around and is going to burn his engines as hard as he can in the direction of the artificial star. So it probably takes them a couple of hours to travel from this desert world to the artificial construct. When they reach the artificial star, I think Lucius does a quick scan, and there's probably a lot of debris around here. So he has these coordinates from his Aunt Aurelia, but I think because of her paranoia about whether or not the Ironhawks would be able to hack the communication between them, she didn't give him the exact coordinates for this wreck, just in case the Ironhawks did get some of the information and were able to follow him out there. So I think Lucius has to basically do some scanning of the area to try and find the specific wreck that his aunt was talking about. And to do that, we're going to roll our gather information. Now, Lucius is an archivist. He is the bearer of a digital archive of specialized knowledge. So when we are securing an advantage or gathering information using lore recalled from your studies, add +1. If you have ample time to search the archive, add +2. On a hit, envision the obscure but helpful knowledge you put to use and take +1 momentum. I don't think he has ample time to search the archive because I think it is too vast a topic to be able to fully delve the depths of searching in a couple hours. So I'm just going to go with the +1 on this. So our gather information is +wits, +1 for my archivist ability. So I'm rolling at +4 here. Ooh, and I'm going to need it too. So I've got a 6 on the action die, thanks to that +1 from my Archivist. Then I've got a 5 and a 9 on the challenge dice. So that gives me a weak hit. So the information provides new insight, but also introduces a complication. Envision what you discover. I think we know what we discover. We discover the ship. But we also have to discover what that complication is and take +1 momentum. I also get +1 momentum for my asset, so I actually get +2 momentum. And my momentum goes up to 8, which is great. So Lucius, I think, uses this digital archive to pull up a list of known Ascendancy starships based on wreckage that they've investigated over the course of the last 2 generations that the Founder clans have been in the Forge. And so he's able to basically use that information to build a profile of, here are the ships that would most likely be carrying this weapon that Aunt Aurelia described. And he's able to use that to scan throughout the this debris field for that particular starship's profile. But because there's a complication, I think the complication could go one of 2 ways. Either, on the one hand, the Ironhawks did overhear some of the communication, and they sent a couple ships in pursuit of him, or there's some sort of Ascendancy protection that is in place out here. So I'm going to say, I think it's 50-50 that the Ironhawks overheard and sent ships. So 51 or greater, the answer is yes, they did. Otherwise, it'll be the Ascendancy defense mechanism, and we'll delve into that a little bit more as we get to it. I'm going to roll and see which it is. 82. Yes, the Ironhawks did capture some of Lucius' communication with Aurelia and probably sent a couple fighters after the Hadrian's Folly to stop them from coming back with this weapon. The Hadrian's Folly is sitting there in space, scanning the debris field, and Lucius pings a profile that matches what he has in his database. And he's like, Adelie, I think I found it. It's over here. And then alarms start blaring. And Lucius says, are you kidding? We've got incoming fighters. And Adelie says, I'll take the guns again. And Lucius says, all right, here we go. And he engages the thrust, sending the Hadrian's Folly spiraling into the debris field to try and throw off the pursuit. And why don't we go ahead and enter the fray on this? Let's actually do a little fight here. There are 2 Ironhawk fighters, and I'm going to say that this is going to be a dangerous encounter. So we are going to go ahead and enter the fray, and we are on the move, where we're going to roll plus edge in this case. And I'm going to take a look at my navigator path again, and this doesn't really help me for this particular instance. So it's just going to be straight +2 for my edge. Here we go. All right, we're starting off strong with an 8 on the action die, a 1 and a 5 on the challenge dice for a strong hit. So I get +2 momentum, which actually takes me up to a full 10 momentum. And I am also in control. So I think what this looks like is Lucius flies the Hadrian's Folly into the debris field. They are weaving in and out, and he is able to perform a pretty dangerous and challenging maneuver to spin the ship around and come back at the 2 fighters as they started pursuing him into the debris field. And as he does that, he lines up the forward-facing cannons on the Hadrian's Folly, and Adelie also is firing like a turret cannon as well. And we're going to try and strike. So again, this is going to be rolling plus edge. This is +2, and we are going to try and take out these fighters. Okay, here we go. So I've got a 5 on the action die. I've got an 8 and a 9 on the challenge dice. It's a miss. Oh no, the Hadrian's Folly is going to be destroyed. But I've got 10 momentum, so I'm going to burn that momentum, and I'm going to turn this into a strong hit. So I'm going back down to 2 momentum, which is fine. And I've got my strong hit, so I get to mark extra progress. So we're going to mark 2 boxes on the progress track for the first bit of progress, and then 2 more boxes for the second for the extra progress. So I'm going to mark a total of 4 boxes. I think this looks like they turn around, they fire a full barrage, and it looks like the shots might miss. And then for no reason in particular, one of the fighters like dodges out of the way of some debris and actually flies directly into the cannon fire, and I think just lights up. I don't think it's actually destroyed quite yet, but it is in a bad strait. As they pass by, Lucius performs another hard turn and is going to, I think, try and put a little bit more distance between them. So we're going to go ahead and try to gain ground. So when you're in control, which I am because of that strong hit, and take action in a fight to reinforce your position or move towards an objective, I am going to do so by maneuvering. So we're going to roll plus edge again. Here comes +2. Okay, our luck has run out. So I've got a 3 on the action die, I've got a 6 and an 8 on the challenge dice. We've got another miss, and I don't have that cushion of momentum to turn it into a strong hit. So on a miss, your foe gains the upper hand, the fight moves to a new location, or you encounter a new complication. You are in a bad spot and must pay the price. I think the fighters recover from that initial barrage. The one that's damaged is kind of hanging back a little bit, but the other one is still intact and is able to follow Lucius's really hard burn maneuvers. And I think this is where I'm actually going to bring in the Ascendancy defenses as well. There's a bot that starts up. It was probably dormant, but the weapons fire has reawakened it. And there is an Ascendancy drone, shall we say, that is in the fight. So Lucius is going to try and basically dodge and get out of the way of now these 2 competing forces. I think because the drone is probably going to fire at whoever is firing weapons. And at this point, I think because of the maneuvering and the fact that we got a miss on that, the fighters are actually in a better position. So they're probably firing on the Hadrian's Folly. Lucius is keeping out of the way. The drone comes up out of the wreckage and a beam cuts across space, and the fighters dodge out of the way. Adelie says, "Lucius, look out, there's an Ascendancy drone." And Lucius says, I see it, hold on," and is going to try and cut down and around and under a larger hulk of a ship and try to get some cover, maybe get back into position here. We're going to roll again with edge, but this time we're reacting under fire. Well, it's been nice knowing you. I've got a 4 on the action die, and I've got 2 10s on the challenge dice. It's a miss and a complication. The situation worsens. You stay in a bad spot, and you must pay the price. So I'm going to go ahead and roll on the pay the price, because I have an idea of what that might mean, but I want to see what the Oracle says. 96, I get to roll twice and have 2 complications. So 80 is you are harmed, fair enough, and 53, your equipment or vehicle malfunctions. Wonderful. All right, so we are going to say that because that was a double 10 miss complication, that it's actually going to be 3 harm to the ship. So the ship's integrity is going to go down to 2 out of 5, and it glitches out. The ship shudders and is having a difficult time keeping the engine burning. So it'll engage for a few seconds and then cut out and then engage for a few more seconds. And Lucius is like, come on. So our integrity on the Hadrian's Folly is down to 2 out of 5. And I'm going to try and resist some of that. So let's see our withstand damage suffer move. Roll plus integrity. So I'm at a +2 because of all that damage. And here we go. Okay, so I've got a 3 on the action die. I've got a 1 and a 6 on the challenge dice. So we are looking at a weak hit. I can lose a momentum in order to exchange for +1 integrity. Otherwise, press on. I'm only sitting at 2 momentum, so it's a little bit dangerous to do that. But I'm going to go ahead and lose 1 momentum to take 1 integrity. So I'm back up to 3 out of 5. At that point, I think this battle is continuing on outside between the fighters and the drone, and Lucius is going to try and repair the ship real quick. He's going to do so under fire and is doing it himself, so he's going to roll plus wits, and we're going to see what happens. So it's +3. Oh, wow. Okay, so I've got 5 on the action die. I've got 2 8s on the challenge dice for a complication. It's a miss with a complication. Repairs are not made, and the situation worsens. Pay the price again. Oh, dear. The Hadrian's Folly is in grave peril. All right, so let's roll on this pay the price again. 12. You face a tough choice. I think the tough choice here is whether or not to abandon this course of action and basically retreat with what little power the ship has, or try and outlast this battle and survive. So Lucius is going to try and stay in the fight because he can't leave his aunt facing off against these Ironhawks by herself. But I think because of this, the ship is like really glitching, and so we're going to be in a bit of trouble here. As part of that, we're going to have to go ahead and react under fire again. And this time, it's going to be remaining stalwart against fear or temptation. And I think that temptation is to run. So this is going to be plus heart. So the ships are trading shots back and forth, the drone and the fighters. Lucius is trying to repair the ship, but it's just not working in the way that he would like. And I think the Hadrian's Folly is basically down to thrusters only, and he could basically try and tuck the ship into some wreckage and hide, but he doesn't know how long that'll take. And so the temptation to do so is strong, but he is going to try and maneuver with the thrusters into a position where maybe they can get some shots off at the fighters while they're trying to deal with this ascendancy drone. +2 on the heart. And how the tables turn. 8 on the action die. I've got a 1 and a 4 on the challenge dice for a strong hit. So I succeed and I take control. So we're going to go +1 momentum. I think the drone has taken out the damaged fighter. And so there's just 1 Ironhawk fighter. There's the drone. They're trading shots back and forth. And Lucius is able to fire the thrusters enough that they're able to lift up over this ascendancy ship, and they are able to target, if not one, or both of the targets that are out there. So we're going to try and strike again. At a distance, rolling plus edge. Here we go. This could be for all the marbles. All right. This has been the battle of complications and of opportunities, apparently, because I've got a 5 on the action die and 2 3s on the challenge dice for a strong hit with an opportunity. So I'm going to mark progress. I'm going to mark 4 boxes again, which is going to take me to 8 progress. I've got the strong hit. I think the opportunity here is that if Lucius destroys the Ironhawk fighter, there's a chance that he can interact with the ascendancy drone in such a way that it will power down and not try to continue the fight. So here we go. I'm at 8 progress. We're going to try and take decisive action. Lucius is lining up that last shot on the fighter. Adderley is doing the same. They're going to try and take out the last Ironhawk, and then depending on how this goes, we'll see if we have to keep fighting against the drone or if we can make our way beyond that. 8 on the progress. Here comes the challenge dice. A 4 and a 1. It's a strong hit. So we prevail and take +1 momentum. So that's going to give me 3 momentum. And I think because of the opportunity that I rolled previously, because of the strong hit on this to take decisive action, Lucius and Adelie are able to destroy the Ironhawk fighter, and then Lucius very quickly sends out some sort of message. As a student of the Ascendancy, he knows something about these defensive drones, and he's able to formulate some sort of communication that essentially tells the drone that we are not your enemy. Stand down. Because he got a strong hit on the take to the decisive action, I think it works, and the drone powers down. There's silence in the cockpit of the Hadrian's Folly for a moment as Lucius and Adelie take stock of what just happened, of the battle, of the very, very close call that they had to destruction, really. And Lucius says, we need to get the ship fixed, and we need to find that weapon, and we've got to get back. Who knows if the Ironhawks will send more fighters after us? And Adelie says, that was very impressive flying, Lucius. You did well. And Lucius smiles and says, not so bad yourself. It's good shooting. Now that there's not gunplay going on all around, maybe I can focus on these repairs and we can get back on track here. So I'm going to go ahead and try to do another quick repair because I think the engines, based on that complication and failure that I had, the engines are still glitching and it's going to be difficult to get back to Rampart without repairing that. So this time, though, we're in the field, we're not under fire, and we're rolling plus wits again. Here we go. I've got a 4 on the action die. I've got a 6 and an 8 on the challenge dice. This has been the swingiest episode, I think, so far. It's highs, it's lows, it's just dramatic all around. So it's another miss. So I think the complication here is that it's just going to take longer to get back. And because of that, I think there's a good chance that shield back at the shipbuilder's warehouse might not last the whole time. We'll have to find out as we get closer to that. So Lucius is going to do what he can for the ship and is going to then set course for the wreckage. The Hadrian's Folly gets right up to this Ascendancy ship, and Lucius powers down to try and keep them from being detected by any other Ironhawks who might be approaching the area. And he turns to Adelie and says, I have to go out and over to that ship and try to uncouple all of the weapon parts and then remove it and bring it back over. You stay here and keep an eye out for Ironhawks and for any other trouble. Adelie says, are you sure you don't want me to come with you? And Lucius says, I'm going to take Lieutenant Mila and some of the others to help me move stuff. I need somebody that I can trust in the cockpit. And Adelie looks at him and smiles and says, I'll take care of it. So they are going to go EVA and go out of the ship in suits to head over to this Ascendancy wreck. And I think we're actually going to go ahead and use the expedition rules for this as well. Because it does say on there, when you journey over unexplained terrain or survey a mysterious site, give the expedition a name and rank, and then we're going to go for it. So this is going to be explore the Ascendancy wreck, and I think this is going to be a dangerous expedition. I don't think there's something that makes this super difficult, but it's certainly not just troublesome. So Lucius and Lieutenant Mila and a couple of the other soldiers from Lodestar gear up in environmental suits, and they go into the airlock, depressurize, and they head out to the Ascendancy wreck. So I think in order to do this, we're going to start off by being vigilant. So as they're approaching the outer edge of the hull of this Ascendancy ship, there are clearly like holes in the hull where maybe weapons fire or an internal breach. It's not really clear yet, but there are definitely access points into this wreck. And Lucius is trying to be vigilant as they're approaching the wreck. So this is going to be plus wits. He's got a 3 in wits. So let's see what he explores. All right, so I've got a 6 on the action die. I've got a 4 and an 8 on the challenge dice. It's a weak hit. So reach a waypoint and mark progress, but also choose one. Suffer costs en route or face a complication at the waypoint. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and mark progress. It's going to be 2 boxes because, again, it's a dangerous expedition. And I think the complication is that even though the exterior hull of the ship is full of these holes, once they actually get into it and find like a main corridor, they actually come up against a doorway that is sealed. And Lucius is going to have to try and interact with it and overcome the lock on this shield in order to get past it. But that's okay, because he is maybe not an expert on the Ascendancy, but he does have a decent amount of knowledge. So I think we're going to, again, try to hack into this thing. And I think in order to do that, he's going to try and run a program on his personal computer using some encryption codes that he learned in school that relate to Ascendancy tech. So this is going to be my secure an advantage to try and give him a leg up as he tries to hack through this door. And this is going to be with wits, and I'm going to take +1 because of my archivist asset as well. So I'm going to be +4 on this roll. I've got an 8 on the action die. I've got 2 3s on the challenge dice. It's another strong hit with an opportunity. So on a strong hit, I get to take momentum and +1 to my next move. So it's going to be 5 for my momentum, which is great. And we're building that back up. And then we are going to do the face danger to try and hack through, again with wits. So we're looking at +4. I don't really have anything specific for the opportunity right now, but I'm thinking depending on the result of this roll, I can work with that. I just remembered I should have gotten an extra momentum because I got a hit on my secure an advantage using my archivist asset. So I'm going to go ahead and take that to 6 momentum, which is great. So 4 on my edge +1 for my secure an advantage for this face danger to hack the door. Here we go. So I've got 7 on the action die. I've got a 5 and an 8 on the challenge dice. We've got a weak hit. So we succeed, but at a troublesome cost. I am going to say that the opportunity here, based on the last thing, is that because of the damage to the ship, any sort of interference with the security system doesn't alert the whole ship because there are gaps in the connectivity of the systems, and it's a long dead wreck. So who knows if there is even any security left on here, but just in case there is, I'm going to say that he is able to get through the door, but in doing so takes a little bit longer, and I'm going to go ahead and just take a momentum hit. So we're going to go back to 5 momentum. I think that's easy. We surpass this locked door, and we're going to go ahead and continue to try and explore this wreck, looking for the weapons platform. Continuing to stay vigilant, so we're going to roll +wits again. All right, so I got a 5 on the action die. I've got a 1 and 8 on the challenge dice. We got another weak hit, so I can mark progress. So we're up to 4. But I can suffer costs en route, or I can face a complication at the waypoint. So we continue down this hallway, and we are going to come across something, but I don't know what it is yet. So I'm going to roll on the descriptor and focus to see if that gives me an idea. I've got 65, mysterious, and 4, apparition. Ooh, okay. So we come out of the hallway into what looks like some sort of secondary control room in this Ascendancy ship. And as they step through, I think there's a flicker of movement in the corner. And Lieutenant Mila and the Lodestar soldiers train their weapons in that direction. And I would like to establish this right here. Definitely Lucius brought Brutus with him. He has his trusty combat bot in tow. And there's this apparition in the corner, and they like point their weapons at it. And Lucius sort of raises hands and says, I think it might be a hologram that this ship is generating. Let me see if I can communicate with it and maybe get some information. And he's gonna go over there and say, Ascendancy ship, are you able to communicate with us? And it sort of is like glitching in and out. And he's like, please don't be alarmed. We're not here to destroy your ship or anything like that. We just need your help. And there's this like glitching sound, and I'm not sure if this thing is friendly or not. So I'm going to say it's 50-50. We're going to ask the Oracle, is this thing friendly? So 51 or greater, yes, it is friendly. Otherwise, it's not friendly. 44, it is not friendly. Lucius kind of like is approaching it slowly, and it makes this screeching noise. And then all of a sudden, the doors close on either side of this control room, and there is the approximation of some sort of alarm, sort of like flashing. This like purplish light is just flickering, and it's flickering faster and faster and faster. And Lieutenant Mila's like, what is that? That doesn't look good. And Lucius says, oh no, that's probably not good at all. And he is going to try and lock down whatever that is. So he's going over to one of the panels, trying to get access to the system to shut down whatever defense mechanism is happening here. And to do that, again, we're rolling plus wits. So it's +3. I've got a 9 on the action die. I've got a 6 and a 10 on the challenge dice. It's a weak hit. I think he is able to successfully shut it down, but I'm also going to tick down his spirit to 2 out of 5 because I think it's close. Like, he figures out what the timer is when he stops it, and it's at like, 0.001 second, and he's just like, oh boy. Okay, everything's fine. Unseals the doors. They're able to continue. And he's like, let's just keep going and try not to touch anything else. Try not to startle any other strange, ghostly holograms on this Ascendancy ship. And let's try to pick up the pace a little bit. And so we're going to try and move at speed this time, rolling plus edge instead of plus wits. And that was a mistake. So it's a 5 on the action die. We've got 2 6s on the challenge dice for a miss and a complication. We arrive at the next waypoint, which I think is some sort of like large hold. And there is a tink, 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 tink. And I think there is a whirring sound as a smaller version of that Ascendancy drone that they saw outside drops down from a chute in the ceiling of this cargo hold and powers up. And there's 1 comes down, 2, 3, 4, and they start shooting these beam lasers across the room at Lucius and the Lodestar soldiers as they scatter. And instead of going into a full combat here, I'm just going to go ahead and use the battle moves. The battle happens in a blur. Brutus deploys, is firing off. Lieutenant Mila and the Lodestar soldiers are firing with their rifles. Lucius is shooting with his pulse pistol. So I think this is going to be a defining moment for Lucius, as he is basically trying to lead this group of people through this Ascendancy wreck. They come into this cargo hold, they get attacked, and Lieutenant Mila is a soldier and knows about leading troops in battle, but sees Lucius as their commanding officer and sort of is relying on Lucius to set a tone for this. So he's going to try and depend on courage, leadership in order to get through this battle. So we're going to roll this plus heart, which is +2, and the battle happens in a blur. Okay, I've got a 4 on the action die. I've got a 2 and a 9 on the challenge dice for a weak hit. You achieve your objective, but not without cost. Pay the price. They are able to successfully defend against the Ascendancy drones and fight them off. But I think in so doing, a couple of the Lodestar soldiers fall. And as part of that, Lucius suddenly has this moment of responsibility where he feels guilt for leading these people into battle. And as they're in the aftermath of the fight against these drones, and Lieutenant Mila, who did survive, and the couple other soldiers who survived are trying to tend to their fallen comrades, Lucius takes a few steps away and is, I think, able to see a spot in the hull which has been cracked open and is able to see out into the vastness of space. And he is standing there with his back to this carnage. He's still trying to catch his breath, and his heart is still pounding from the adrenaline of the fight. And he looks out into space and says, "So this is what it's like to lead troops into battle. Father always said that if I had chosen that path, if I had chosen to fight for our clan, that I would have learned what this felt like. He always said that he was glad that I didn't, that it was better not to know that feeling. Now I know what he meant. Now I know what it feels like." And Lucius Tarquin closes his eyes, closing out the feelings of guilt and fear and shame and horror. And he remembers the image of the Ironhawk ship bombarding the shipbuilder's warehouse. And when he opens his eyes again, there's a look of determination on his features. And he turns back to Lieutenant Mila and the others and says, "We'll bring their bodies with us on our way out, but we have to press on." Thanks for listening to Errant Adventures. If you enjoyed the show, please tell your friends, family, pets, or really anybody you want about it. And head over to Apple Podcasts to leave a review so more people can find the show. If you want to chat with me, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at ErrantSolopod, or you can email me at errantsolopod@gmail.com. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time.